Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
And hello once again. Welcome to Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. My name, John Scholes, your host, and Lior Samfiru from EmploymentLawyer.ca will be joining us momentarily. The boss is back. And I'm going to give you right off the top how you reach out to Lior and his team. You'll always have it on the screen, but just in case, 1-888-861-4555. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca or simply EmploymentLawyer.ca would be the website. Lots of stuff to get through on the show today. We'll get to several phone calls from our long-running radio shows, including right here in the GTA. Join us Sundays, 1 p.m. and News Talk 1010. All kinds of good things going on there as well. Top myths of termination. I love that word, top myths of termination. That's coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk more about that. But Leo, we always start off, pal, with the week that was, case of the day, something that's going on in your end. What do you got for us this week?
Employment law. I'm
Good.
back here to talk about employment law, and I'm here to talk about all these issues that you may be facing if you have a job. Not always is it going to be that things go well. Sometimes you're going to have problems or questions. Maybe you have a bad boss. Maybe you're dealing with a difficult situation at work. Maybe you're concerned of whether what the company's doing is legal. You lost your job. Your pay has changed. You name it. Those are the issues that I deal with every single day. They come up all the time. We want to do the show every week to inform you and educate you so that if those issues come up for you, you'll know what to do. You'll know what to see. You'll know how to get those problems solved. And it can start by listening to the show. And if you want, it can continue by calling me at the office, by reaching out by phone or email. We'll give you that contact information. Again, it's on the screen as well. But remember, there is something you can do. We have great laws here. And I like to start by telling you about a case that not only came across my desk recently, I actually dealt with it on the way to the studio today. And someone that I spoke with, well, what he told me is that for 12 years, he had worked for the same employer. 12 years, long time. Except every single year, he'd sign a new employment agreement for the next year. Every year, like clockwork, signed a new agreement. And that agreement, by the way, said that we can let you go out of this agreement with 2 weeks' pay. Well, fast forward to now. Company says, we're letting you go, not renewing it. You're getting no more contracts, and we're going to give you that 2 weeks' pay. Off you go. Well, he called me. As I said, I spoke to him on the way to the studio today. Well, what does it mean? And you know, hopefully those of you that have a good memory may have heard us talk about this before on the show. And that's the idea that if you sign multiple contracts a year after year after year, those contracts become meaningless. They're of no value whatsoever. It's as if you're a regular, indefinite employee. So for him, for 12 years, for sure, he is now a regular employee. He's not on a contract. That piece of paper that he signs every year is meaningless. Because he's an indefinite employee, now he's being let go, he's owed severance as a 12-year employee would. For him, I assessed him as being owed about 14 months of severance, 14 months, not 2 weeks' pay. And this happens often, and that's why I wanted to remind everyone here that if you sign contracts year after year, renewing it, well, after about 3 of them or so, that contract becomes meaningless. You're now a regular indefinite employee, even if you continue signing. That means if you're let go, if the company says, that's it, today is that day where we're not renewing you anymore, you're going to be owed severance based on your full time with the company, and the company can't avoid that simply by keep having you sign contracts.
Again, guys, EmploymentLawyer.ca, the website you want to reach out to anytime. Among all the stuff you can learn on the website, there's contact information and where you can find us performing our thing on the radio. We do that pretty much across the country, and you can join in as well on the phone, ask questions. Sundays, 1 p.m. on News Talk 1010. We'd love to have you on this weekend as well, so feel free to do that. Your phone call may appear on a future show. We'd like to get the phone calls in on this show, talk about them a little bit, right, Lior? First phone call for the day is coming up right now. Let's get to it.
I'm in a situation where I work for a company and I was asked to go to another location, and it's another hour and a half from where I live. So I did that for them for a little bit, and then they've asked me to go there full time, gave me compensation of $60 a week for gas. And they said, well, this will last a month. Now every month they've said, oh, it'll be another couple of weeks. I've only been with the company for about a year. It's just getting a little much on the family life, you know, and my wife telling me to get a new job. So I'm just curious where I stand on that.
So this is something that we've tackled on the show before, and I certainly tackle fairly often at the office, and that is the idea of being relocated. Now, it's not what you signed up for. Now you have to travel much further. Well, wait a second. That is a significant change to the terms of employment. That means that the company is breaching the deal. We call this constructive dismissal. So in this situation, if he is in fact being told now, instead of commuting 20 minutes to work, we're going to send you to a different location every day, and that's an hour and a half. No, that's a constructive dismissal. He can treat that as a termination of employment. The concern I'd have here, he's already been doing this for a while, so he has to act quickly to stand up for his rights. He can't do this for a year and then say, well, now it's a constructive dismissal. If you're being relocated, if now you're going to have to commute a lot further, you have that very small window to say constructive dismissal. I'm not accepting that. That's not the deal. So in that situation, he can do that. He can treat that as a termination and get severance. Question, of course, becomes, well, how much severance is he owed? Even though he's only worked for a year, he's owed a significant amount. Let's see. Let's go use our severance calculator tool. We're going to go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. We're going to plug his information in our severance calculator, and let's see what that gives us. So he's been there for a year. He's 43 years of age in a professional role. Because it's a constructive dismissal, because he can treat his employment as being terminated, he's owed up to 6 months of severance. 6 months, even though he's only been there for a year. So that's what's at stake for him, John. Same with you at home. If you've been let go, if you've been constructively dismissed, if you've been relocated, you can find out how much you're owed as well. Just go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca.
And a good warm-up right there, our first segment. We'll take a short break, guys, get back to it. Top myths of termination is coming up on the other side, so stick with us. Lots more. Ask a Lawyer is just around the corner right here on CP24.
Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
And welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24. John Scholes, your host, and Lior Samfiru from EmploymentLawyer.ca. Reaching out anytime you would like. Try a phone call first, and it'd be a 1-888-861-4555. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Works as well. Okay, Lior, main topic. Let's get down to it. Top myths of termination. Number one, let's get right into this. Your boss can only let you go if they have a good, legitimate reason to do so.
Talk about myths. A lot of people believe that you can only be let go if there's a good reason, if you did something wrong, if there's a basis for it. Unfortunately, that is not the case. That is a myth, because an employer can let you go at any time and for most reasons, as long as they pay you severance. They can let you go even if you've done nothing wrong. Now, of course, they cannot let you go for a discriminatory reason. They can't let you go because of your age, your ethnicity, your race, your sexual orientation. That's a human rights violation. But they can let you go for any other reason, or to hire their cousin, or for reasons that may not seem like good reason, as long as they pay severance. The thing is, of course, in most cases, when an employer lets someone go, they're not offering proper severance, which, John, that makes it a wrongful dismissal.
Myth number two is this. When you lose your job, you only get a few weeks' pay. That's it, which, by the way, is the reason we started all this radio and TV about 11 years ago. Huge myth.
If this was not a myth, you and I would not be sitting here. We wouldn't have done hundreds of shows across the country. So let's be very clear about this myth. It's not a week per year. It's not a couple of weeks. It's not a few weeks. Significant entitlements must be paid when you lose your job, when you're laid off, even if you're put on a temporary layoff. In that situation, that severance could be up to 2 years, 24 months pay. The factors, of course, are your age, your position, and the length of your employment. Even if you're a short service employee, your severance is going to be measured in months. Don't accept that severance offer that may be, oh, here's a few weeks pay. That few weeks could easily be a few months that you're owed. That is a myth. You have to do it right, or just go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca.
Termination myth number three is this. To get any severance, you need to work a minimum of 5 years for a company that has a payroll of $2.5 million. What?
So, yeah, well, if you go online and you even read in the Ministry of Labor, they'll tell you about severance that has to be paid only if you work for a larger company, if you've been there for 5 years. Well, that's not right at all. Every employee is owed severance. Now, your minimum entitlements may be different whether you work for a small company or a big company, but your full entitlements have nothing to do with that. So it's very simple. If you had a job, whether you work for a month or 50 years, if you lost that job, well, then you are owed severance. The size of the payroll doesn't matter. It's your age, your position, and the length of your employment. And yes, working for a tiny company, you can still be owed up to the same 24 months' pay. That's why it's important not to believe this myth. That's why it's so important that we have this forum to tell you how things are. Now you know better.
Termination myth number 4 is this: being, quote, on contract means you don't get severance pay.
Again, remember what I just said. If you had a job and you lost that job, well, you are owed severance. The fact that they call you on contract, the fact that you signed the contract, the fact that you're there as what they believe to be an independent contractor doesn't exclude severance. In most cases, people that are supposedly independent contractors are really misclassified. They're really employees, meaning severance has to be paid, again, up to 2 years' pay. So if you want to know if you're truly an independent contractor, by the way, you're probably not. Again, go to EmploymentLawyer.ca. Use our tool there, our independent contractor tool. But otherwise, yes, severance has to be paid, even if you supposedly are on contract.
All right, our 5th and final myth for the show tonight about termination: the government will help you get all your severance pay. Nobody's buying that.
You know, that is another main reason as to why we started doing this show all these years ago and why we've been talking about these topics. The government cannot help you, get your termination entitlements. They can help you enforce a small fraction of those entitlements. You know, maybe 2 weeks pay when you're owed 12 months pay, but they cannot help you get your full entitlements. For that, you have to speak with an employment lawyer. If you don't like myself, okay, speak with another employment lawyer. But you cannot go to the government for your entitlements. You can go there for overtime pay. You can go for vacation pay, not to get your severance. Call me, email me, and let's do this right, John.
We have time for another phone call from one of our radio shows. Again, reminding you can tune in, especially here in the GTA, Sundays at 1 p.m. on News Talk 1010. Phone call number 2, Lior, is coming at you right now.
I was working for a company, and while I was working there, I needed some accommodation for a disability that I have. I provided 2 doctor's letters stating exactly what the accommodation needs were. The employer said that they would meet those accommodations, but they never did. And then they just terminated me the same day. I brought the second doctor's letter to work. They gave me my 1 week's pay under the Employment Standards Act.
John, I mean, yeah, I don't even know how to attack this. There's just so much wrong here. So let's start with talking about accommodation and the fact that accommodation is not your employer doing you a favor. It's not your employer, being nice to you. The duty to accommodate is extremely important, and it's one the company must do. If you have a doctor's note that says you need accommodation, modified hours, modified duties, the company has to do it. There's no discretion there. They don't get to decide not to. It's not up to them to question it or to think that they know better. They have to accommodate, and if they don't, well, that's a human rights violation. It's illegal. They must do it, and it starts with that doctor's note. And then to be let go because you're asking for accommodation, well, now it's another form of a human rights violation, that much more illegal. And of course, he's owed much more than just his entitlements under the Employment Standards Act. So we have at least 2 types of human rights violations here, and we have a wrongful dismissal as well. Get that doctor's note. If the company does anything other than accommodate you, call me immediately.
Those are the termination myths for tonight's show. You want more information anytime, again, the website, EmploymentLawyer.ca. We'll get to another phone call. That was number 2. Number 3 is coming up after the short break as we continue right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome back. This is Ask a Lawyer on CP24. Good to have you along for the half hour. You can do it every week, by the way, at this time. John Scholes, your host, as always, and Lior Samfiru. You can reach out to Lior at EmploymentLawyer.ca anytime, have a chat, and get lots more information. The phone call is up on the screen there and the email address. Speaking of phone calls, radio show, I'll tell you once again, right across the country, Lior and I have been doing radio for about 11 years, including right here in the GTA, the mothership on News Talk 1010. Join us Sundays at 1 p.m. Make that phone call, be part of the show, and then your call may appear on this show later on. So as I mentioned earlier, phone call number 3 with your comments, Lior, coming up right now.
I recently got laid off from my job. I just want to know if I got the right amount. I worked there about 6 years, 8 months. It was a private medical company, so I worked as like an OR assistant.
And how old are you?
42. I didn't sign off on anything when I left, but I did have a employee agreement. I had a contract.
Right. This is probably the most common type of question that we get at the office. Someone was let go or sitting there with their piece of paper, that severance offer in hand, and they just want to know the right thing. They want to know what are they owed and is what they've been offered the right amount. By the way, 90% of the time, 90%, and it's probably even higher than that, that piece of paper that I see does not represent the full amount. You're owed much, much more. Let's use this call as an example. I'm going to tell you how much he's owed, but I'll also show you how much he's owed. We're going to go back to our severance calculator tool. You can find it at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. And let's see if what he was offered is fine. So he's in a technical role, been there for 6 years, okay? He wants to know how much he is owed. Well, the right amount, you see that on the screen, is right around 8 months of severance, 8 months. So now he knows that he can compare it with what he's been offered. If what he's been offered is fine, yeah, he can go ahead and sign. If it's not fine, well, now he can contact me and we can get him that proper severance. You do that at home as well. Just go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca if you lost your job. The first place you go to, smartphone, desktop, tablet, whatever you want, it works, so check it out.
And you can also send an email along anytime, ask at employmentlawyer.ca. I want to get to an email for this show, Lior, with some time we got left. This one's a beauty. You're going to love it. It says, my manager just handed me a new employment contract with a deadline to accept within 2 days. If I don't, my job will come to an end immediately. But this new agreement will slash my commission. Do I have to sign it?
Well, think about it this way. You have to ultimately decide what's better for you to happen. Is it better for you to sign this, continue working with these new terms of employment, or are you better off leaving, getting your full severance, and not signing? Because you can't stop your employer from letting you go. Remember, I talked earlier that an employer can let you go. But what you shouldn't do is give up your rights. So potentially by signing this, you're giving up your commissions. I bet you there's other terms there that are problematic. Maybe something that limits your future severance. So if you sign this and a year later, you were let go, not only are you getting paid less in the meantime, you're going to get less severance as well. Your employer can't force you to sign. They can't fire you for not signing. In many situations like this one, you're better off not signing. And by the way, once you don't sign and the company realizes, wait, it's going to cost us how much to let him go? They may not let you go. But in some situations like this one, you may be better off losing your job now, getting your full severance, than signing that piece of paper and then realizing that by signing it, you've cost yourself tens of thousands of dollars. Don't let that happen. Anytime you're presented with a new employment agreement, be very wary, very concerned. Don't sign it without having me see it first.
We'll take a short break now, our last one, before we get to more stuff. In fact, this could be a question from the live stream you host all the time each week, Lior. That is on the other side, right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24. Stick around.
Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome back to Ask a Lawyer. This is CP24. John Scholes and Lior Samfiru, EmploymentLawyer.ca to reach Lior anytime, and 1-888-861-4555 would be the number. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca. That's your easy email address. Okay, in addition to all the stuff that Lior does, practicing law, being a dad, male model, maybe eventually, he also does a lot of live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. You want to get a hold of that, be part of it, join that particular conversation at ST Lawyers. At ST Lawyers is how you do that. Here it is for tonight's show, Lior. A new coworker has been making inappropriate comments in the office. I've asked him to stop many times, but things keep escalating. My manager doesn't seem to care. What are my options here?
Yeah, so this is a very serious matter, and unfortunately one that I see often and again, and I shouldn't have to see that. So let's talk about what we can do here. Number one, understand and remember, you have a right to work in a poison-free work environment, in a healthy, supportive environment where you're not bullied, you're not harassed. Now, the first thing I'd want you to think about is, you said the manager is not doing anything. Is there someone else you can talk to? HR, owner, someone above that manager, and do it in writing. Don't call them and say, hey, someone's mistreating me. Send an email. Here's what's happening. I've talked to the manager, nothing has happened. Make sure you have that in writing. If at that point nothing is being done, there's significant consequences. That could be a human rights violation, potentially. That could be a constructive dismissal, for sure. You name it, it's not legal. But I want you to try to resolve it. Give it the opportunity to resolve it internally. Document it, okay? So that you've tried. You don't want anyone to say, no, you never told us. And if it doesn't work, my turn to get involved, give me a call.
And if it's the boss who's doing it, you feel like you got nowhere to turn, right?
If it is the boss, the owner, there's no one who's above the owner of the company. Again, document what's happening. Have a record. Write stuff down. Send an email to someone confirming what happened. And once you have that documented, call me. It's time to get you out of there. It's time to get your compensation. It's constructive dismissal. Don't accept that. Don't accept this reality, this unhealthy reality. I've seen so many times people go off on disability leave because they're bullied, mistreated. Don't let it get that bad. Remember, you still have to be able to show that harassment. The person that's harassing you is not going to admit it. But once you're able to do that, it's not difficult to fix it, to get you out of there, to get you the compensation. Don't make yourself sick by suffering. Call me. We can resolve that very quickly, John.
All right, good stuff. Thank you so much, Lior, for another show. We'll give you a chance to reach out now that we are wrapping for another one for sure. 1-888-861-4555. Use that number all the time. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Simply EmploymentLawyer.ca would be the firm website. And to get a hold of that calculator anytime, pocket EmploymentLawyer.ca. And make those phone calls. Join us on the radio show. You know how to do that. News Talk 1010 Sundays at 1 p.m. And we'll catch you next time on Ask a Lawyer. See you right here on CP24.